Canyon Falls was a gem tucked away in the heart of the frontier, where golden sunsets bathed the rugged landscape in hues of orange and purple. The town was marked by its unyielding peace, cultivated carefully under the watchful eye of Sheriff Boone Travis. For over 20 years, Boone had earned the respect of his fellow townsfolk through his unwavering commitment to fairness and honesty. His strong presence, coupled with an ironclad moral compass, became synonymous with the very identity of Canyon Falls. Life in this small community revolved around simple pleasures: a warm meal at Ma's diner, children playing under the watchful gazes of parents on porches, and men gathered at the saloon to share stories and laughter. Boone embodied these values, embodying the spirit of a protector who would do anything to keep his neighbors safe from harm. In a world filled with uncertainty and shifting loyalties, he was a steadfast rock upon which many relied. Yet this tranquility was fragile. Rumors of trouble brewing just beyond the hills reached Boone's ears on more than one occasion. Whispers of a gang lurking nearby were enough to set alarm bells ringing in his mind, but he remained confident that his experience and resolve could shield his town from any dangers that may arise. With each passing day, however, as the dark shadows of approaching riders loomed closer on the horizon, Boone felt an unsettling tug at his conscience. Old scars haunted him, hints of a past life he had long since buried under layers of duty and regret. He thought those days were behind him until Royce Cutter appeared. The notorious ex-Confederate raider led his gang into town with swagger and menace, their intentions clear as they disrupted the quiet with their boisterous laughter and intimidation tactics. In their wake came not just chaos but a reckoning for Boone Travis, a confrontation that would unravel secrets he'd hoped to keep hidden forever. As laughter turned into tension and fear spread through the streets of Canyon Falls, Boone knew he must confront Royce, not only to defend the town but also to face the haunting truth that had dogged him for years. The very foundations of his life were about to be tested in ways he never could have foreseen. Sheriff Boone Travis was not merely a figure of authority in Canyon Falls, he was the embodiment of the town's ideals. Born to a family of farmers, Boone learned the value of hard work and integrity from an early age. His upbringing instilled in him a strong sense of right and wrong, which became the cornerstone of his life as a lawman. Boone had always believed that justice should be tempered with compassion, and this philosophy earned him the deep respect of the townspeople. His reputation was built on years of dedicated service, marked by a series of tough decisions made with careful consideration. Boone understood that being a sheriff meant more than enforcing laws. It meant nurturing trust and fostering community ties. He spent countless hours conversing with residents, listening to their concerns, and often mediating disputes with diplomacy rather than force. This approach not only solidified his position, but also created an atmosphere of unity in a place that had seen its share of discord. Yet, beneath the surface of this admirable character lay layers of complexity. Boone carried scars from his past, reminders of choices he had made before donning the sheriff's badge. He had once walked a darker path, entangled in conflicts that tested his moral compass. These secrets weighed heavily on him, particularly when he stood at the crossroads between upholding the law and confronting his own demons. As Royce Cutter's gang approached, the memories of those troubled days resurfaced like ghosts haunting him at night. Would the townsfolk still look at him with respect if they knew who he once was? That question loomed like a dark cloud over his conscience. Boone's commitment to justice would soon be put to the ultimate test, forcing him to reconcile his past with his present. In this moment, he realized that protecting Canyon Falls required more than just upholding laws. It demanded unyielding courage and a willingness to face the truth head-on. As fear gripped the town, Boone understood that he could no longer hide from his history. He needed to confront both Royce and himself if he hoped to bring peace back to Canyon Falls once and for all. The peace of Canyon Falls shattered with the thunderous sound of hoofbeats echoing through the town. A cloud of dust rose in the distance, swirling ominously as a group of riders emerged from the horizon, their silhouettes casting long shadows over the dirt roads. At the forefront was Royce Cutter, a man whose reputation preceded him, a notorious ex-Confederate raider whose very name sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened men. As they rode into town, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Children playing in the streets froze mid-laugh, their eyes wide with fear as they recognized the impending threat. Mothers pulled their children close, whispers of warning spreading like wildfire among the townsfolk. The gang's rugged appearance, weathered faces adorned with scars and eyes glinting with malice, confirmed their intentions were anything but peaceful. Royce Cutter, with his commanding presence and a devil-may-care grin, reveled in the chaos he instigated. He dismounted with an air of authority, surveying Canyon Falls as if it were his next conquest. "Well now," he called out, his voice booming across the square, "what do we have here? A quaint little town ripe for some excitement." His laughter echoed ominously, sending waves of apprehension rippling through the crowd. The sheriff's office stood silent as Boone Travis watched from the window, his heart racing. The very sight of Cutter stirred memories that had long lain dormant within him, memories he had hoped to keep buried under layers of duty and respectability. Boone clenched his jaw, knowing that this was more than just a band of raiders. It was a reckoning for him personally. Cutter's gang began to scatter throughout Canyon Falls, causing mayhem wherever they went, shoving aside vendors at the market and demanding drinks at the saloon without so much as a glance for courtesy or respect. Fear gripped the townspeople as they realized that their usual sense of security was being stripped away. The calm facade of Canyon Falls threatened to fracture under this new pressure. As Boone stepped outside, determination replaced hesitation in his heart. He knew he had to act quickly to restore order and protect his home. The stakes were higher than ever. Not only did he need to defend Canyon Falls from this external threat, but he also faced an internal battle that could redefine who he was meant to be. With each step forward into uncertainty, Boone felt both fear and resolve intertwining. This was a moment that would test everything he stood for. As Boone stood at the precipice of conflict, the weight of his past loomed larger than ever. Behind the badge he wore was a man who had once been far removed from the ideals he now championed. Years ago, before he took on the role of sheriff, Boone had been embroiled in a life that danced perilously close to the edge of lawlessness. He had once ridden with a different sort of gang, a group of men bound not by honor but by desperation and survival. In a time when his ideals were still being shaped, Boone found himself swept up in a series of events that would leave indelible marks on his soul. He had made choices driven by anger and vengeance after losing someone dear to him, a brother lost to violence in a skirmish that could have been avoided. In that turbulent period, Boone sought retribution rather than justice, joining forces with those who shared his thirst for revenge against those they deemed responsible. The memory of that time felt like an anchor dragging him down as Cutter's gang rampaged through Canyon Falls. Boone had participated in raids and skirmishes that led to hurt innocent people, acts he could no longer justify as righteous anger. This history contradicted everything he had worked for since becoming sheriff, a role he took on with the firm belief it could lead him toward redemption. Now, as he faced Royce Cutter, the very embodiment of the life he once lived, Boone felt an intense internal conflict. Cutter knew about Boone's past affiliations and used it to taunt him, sowing seeds of doubt among the townsfolk about their sheriff's integrity. Would they still view him as a protector or see him as just another outlaw trying to maintain control over a community forged from bloodshed? Determined not to let his past dictate his future, Boone recognized this was more than just an external battle against Cutter's gang. It was also an opportunity to confront his own demons head-on. The journey ahead would demand him not only to fight for Canyon Falls, but also to reclaim his own identity, bathing away the stains of his past in the pursuit of steadfast justice and true redemption. As adrenaline coursed through his veins, Boone knew this moment would define not only his legacy, but also determine what kind of man he would ultimately become. Royce Cutter stood as a dark specter against the setting sun, his eyes glinting with malicious intent as he surveyed Canyon Falls. He had always been known for his cunning, a master manipulator who understood the power of fear. The moment he trod into town, it was clear he had not just come to cause chaos. He had come with a calculated mission, and at its center was Sheriff Boone Travis. The very foundation of Boone's authority was at risk, for Royce possessed a secret that could unravel everything the sheriff had painstakingly built over the years. He relished in the thought of using Boone's past as a weapon, knowing full well how it could undermine the trust of the townspeople. Cutter's reputation was one of brutality and intimidation, and he had no qualms about employing both to achieve his goals. With each taunt and insidious remark, Royce sowed discord among the townsfolk. In the saloon that evening, as laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, Cutter made his presence known, commanding attention with his booming voice. "Aren't we all just proud of our little sheriff?" he called out, a smirk curling on his lips. He used to ride with men who knew how to handle things differently, men who didn't hesitate to use force to get what they wanted. Tell me, citizens of Canyon Falls, when Boone was living on the wrong side of the law, would you have ever guessed he'd end up in a position of authority? Gasps rippled through the crowd as whispers of doubt began to spread like wildfire. Boone felt the heat of their stares, their trust faltering under Cutter's words. With each syllable, Cutter expertly played on their fears, pitting them against their sheriff in a mirror of Boone's own inner turmoil. As fear and confusion crept into the hearts of the townsfolk, Boone stood rigid at the edge of the saloon, grappling with the realization that he must not only confront Royce's physical threat, but also dismantle the insidious seeds of division that were taking root among his people. They needed reassurance. They needed to believe in him once more. Deep down, Boone understood that this confrontation would be one of heart and mind as much as it was about guns and grit. The struggle against Royce Cutter would not just be for Canyon Falls, but for his very soul, the ultimate test of whether a man could truly redeem himself from his past and reclaim his rightful place as their protector. In the wake of Royce Cutter's arrival, Canyon Falls found itself at a crossroads, a community divided by fear and uncertainty. The gang's menacing presence loomed over the town like dark clouds, threatening a storm, forcing residents to reconsider their loyalties. Boone Travis, once the unquestioned protector of peace, now faced doubts not only from outsiders but from his own neighbors. Some townsfolk rallied around Boone, recognizing his years of service and commitment to justice. They remembered the times he intervened in disputes, offered aid during hardships, and stood as a beacon of hope when dangers appeared on the horizon. For these loyal supporters, Boone's past mistakes were just that, mistakes. They believed in his redemption arc and viewed Cutter's manipulation as an attempt to undermine a good man. However, others began to waver, swayed by Cutter's charisma and audacity. Whispers filled the marketplace. Some wondered if perhaps Boone was not fit for the role he had so long inhabited. After all, they thought, if their sheriff had once walked an outlaw's path, could he truly keep them safe? This shift in perception bred conflict within the community. A palpable tension buzzed through conversations in local shops and bars as residents debated whether they should stand with their sheriff or show allegiance to Cutter's gang. The air was thick with uncertainty, amplified by Cutter's malicious tactics. He hosted gatherings in the town square under the guise of camaraderie, spinning tales of power and retribution. As night fell, boisterous laughter mingled with threats masked as jokes. Boone felt each jab cutting deeper than any bullet could. The more supportive townsfolk rallied around him, but their voices began to feel quieter against the overpowering bravado that Cutter exuded. Caught in this dilemma, Boone grappled not only with how to maintain order amidst impending chaos, but also with how to unite a fracturing community that could either stand strong together or succumb to fear and division. In moments like this, every choice weighed heavily on him. Would he strike out against Cutter openly or work behind the scenes to win back hearts? With time running short and tensions rising, Boone understood that his next moves would determine not just his future as sheriff, but also the fabric of Canyon Falls itself. This was a test of leadership like none he had ever faced before. It was no longer simply about law enforcement. It was about forging a path toward unity, even in the face of looming darkness. As the threat from Royce Cutter grew more imminent, Sheriff Boone Travis found himself ensnared in a web of emotional turmoil that threatened to unravel him. The shadows of his past loomed large, whispering memories that clawed at his conscience with every step he took through Canyon Falls. Those triumphs and failures, the battles fought not just against men but against his own nature, haunted him in moments of solitude and vulnerability. Every time he looked into the eyes of the townspeople, he was reminded of the man he once was, a man who sought vengeance and lived by a code that often blurred the lines between right and wrong. Boone had always taken pride in his transformation. He had fought hard to rebuild his life on the pillars of justice and integrity. But now, faced with Cutter's taunts and the palpable doubt surrounding him, Boone questioned if those changes were substantial enough to withstand this storm. His mind grappled with conflicting thoughts as he replayed moments from his past. Choices made in anger, friendships forged in fire, and a brother lost to violence over a clash driven by revenge. Each recollection felt like a wound reopening, casting shadows over the image he'd painstakingly crafted as a lawman dedicated to protecting his community. He pondered whether he truly deserved the trust bestowed upon him, or if he was merely wearing a mask that would soon be stripped away by Cutter's revelations. Boone could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him, not just from Cutter but from those who believed in him. They looked to him for guidance during this crisis, yet deep down, he feared they might see through his facade and recognize the flawed man beneath it. How long could he maintain this illusion before it crumbled under pressure? As tensions escalated within Canyon Falls, Boone realized that protecting his town meant more than just confronting external threats. It required an honest confrontation with himself. He was standing at a crossroads where every decision carried monumental consequences, not just for him but for everyone who called Canyon Falls home. With time running out, Boone understood that this fight would extend beyond bullets and bravery. It would demand clarity of purpose and absolute resolve. He needed to reclaim not only his position as sheriff, but also his own sense of self-worth. As fear intertwined with determination in his heart, Boone knew this was not merely about defeating Royce Cutter. It was about silencing the demons within him once and for all and emerging as the true protector he aspired to be, a man worthy of redemption amidst a world shaped by gunpowder and conflict. The tension in Canyon Falls reached a boiling point as Royce Cutter's gang began its reign of terror, unleashing violence that shattered any remaining semblance of peace. The streets, once filled with the laughter of children and conversations among neighbors, now echoed with the sounds of chaos, horses galloping wildly, shouts of intimidation, and the unmistakable crack of gunfire piercing the air. Panic rippled through the town as citizens barricaded themselves in their homes, fearing that each moment could bring more destruction. It started with small acts of vandalism, windows smashed, livestock rustled, and homes ransacked, but it quickly escalated into full-blown violence. Boone received reports from terrified townspeople about gang members wielding their weapons openly, threatening anyone daring enough to stand against them. The atmosphere was heavy with fear and uncertainty as whispers of rebellion began to swirl among those disillusioned by Boone's perceived inability to protect them. Boone found himself standing at a grave crossroads. Duty called him to defend his town against these marauders while grappling with his own demons and fears regarding potential failure. He could feel their presence pressing down on him like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. The weight of expectation grew unbearable. He struggled between self-preservation and bravery as Cutter's violent actions forced communities to take sides. Cutter seized this opportunity to further manipulate the situation. He sent messages demanding tribute from businesses, coercing shopkeepers into submission while displaying his strength. "Pay your dues," he would say with a smug grin, "or face the consequences." Boone watched helplessly as fear gnawed at the loyalty he had painstakingly built over decades. Some began whispering in support of Cutter, others just wanted peace at any cost, even if it meant ceding respect. The sheriff felt torn, questioning whether the townsfolk would stand behind him when it mattered most, or if they would choose appeasement over loyalty. He could feel Cutter's taunts creeping into his mind. What if they were right? What if he couldn't stop this menace? At that moment, Boone understood it was not merely about preserving physical safety. It was about maintaining the integrity of everything he had fought for, a community forged by trust rather than fear. Time was running out, and a fateful decision loomed ahead. Would he charge into confrontation knowing it may lead to his undoing, or would he find a way to rally those who still believed in him? It was clear, whatever path he chose would determine not only the fate of Canyon Falls, but also define who he really was in his battle for redemption. The line between duty and survival had never been so stark as he prepared for an impending clash that would shape his legacy forever. As Boone stood at the precipice of confrontation, a sense of clarity pierced through the fog of doubt that had clouded his mind. The town of Canyon Falls lay in turmoil, and he knew this was his last chance to make things right, not just for the community but for himself. He had fought long and hard to become the man he was today, a sheriff dedicated to justice and integrity, but now he faced the haunting specter of his past and the formidable threat posed by Royce Cutter. With the townspeople's eyes upon him, Boone made a decision propelled by an unwavering resolve. He would confront Cutter directly without backup, understanding that this path would lead him to the heart of his internal struggle as well as the external conflict that loomed large. There would be no reinforcements waiting in the wings, no second chances. It was time to face his demons head-on. Boone stepped out into the street, determination etched on his face as he felt the weight of expectation around him. As he marched towards the saloon where Cutter was holding court, Boone recalled all the wrong turns he had taken in his youth, the violence and revenge that shaped him into who he used to be. Yet amid this reflection emerged a burgeoning sense of strength. This confrontation was not merely about defeating an enemy, it was about reclaiming his true self. He realized that every ounce of courage he had cultivated over the years was meant for moments like these. The townsfolk were watching, some with apprehension and others with flickers of hope as they sensed Boone's unwavering focus. In this moment he understood that he could not allow fear to dictate how he would respond. The choice to act decisively wasn't just for redemption, it was about restoring faith in leadership and demonstrating what it meant to stand strong against tyranny, both outside and within. Boone reached the saloon's entrance, breathing deeply as he prepared for what lay ahead. He would confront Cutter with a fierce conviction fueled by years of wrestling with his identity. His heart pounded, not just from adrenaline but from the realization that this battle would reshape everything. His legacy as sheriff, the trust of those who looked up to him, and ultimately his standing before himself. As he pushed open the door, all doubts faded away. It was time to prove that a man could change and create a future forged not in gunpowder but in honor and redemption. The saloon doors swung open to reveal a tense atmosphere, the air thick with anticipation. Inside, Royce Cutter lounged casually at the bar, surrounded by his gang, their laughter echoing mockingly against the walls. Boone Travis stepped into the room, every eye in the establishment turning toward him, an electric silence following his entrance. This was it, the moment that would determine not only the fate of Canyon Falls but also Boone's quest for personal redemption. Boone locked eyes with Cutter, who greeted him with a twisted smile, fully aware of the stakes involved. "I was wondering when you'd finally show up, Sheriff," he taunted, leaning back as if he held all the cards. "What do you think? Are you here to make peace or to get a taste of your own medicine?" The townspeople outside were watching through the window, holding their breath as they awaited the showdown. Boone felt their anxious energy surging behind him. They were counting on him to protect them from this looming threat. He realized that this confrontation wasn't merely about confronting Cutter's gang, it was about confronting his own fears and failures. "Enough games, Cutter," Boone replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside him. "You've made your point clear. Violence and intimidation aren't welcome in Canyon Falls." The words hung heavily in the air as he took a step forward, grounding himself in purpose. Cutter chuckled darkly, standing to match Boone's intensity. "And what will you do about it? You're just one man against us. You think your past doesn't matter? Everyone remembers who you used to be." The reminder stung like a slap across the face, but Boone couldn't let Cutter's words unravel him. The stakes had never been higher. For too long, Boone had lived under the shadow of his former self. Now was his chance to break free and ascend beyond it. He breathed deeply, recalling all that he had fought for, the life he wanted to lead for himself and for those relying on him. As tension surged around him and adrenaline coursed through his veins, Boone realized that he wouldn't just be fighting for physical safety. He was fighting for his soul, the legacy he wanted to leave behind as a man transformed by the choices he had made since then. The weight of history bore down on him, but this was a test of will and resolve. With determination etched into every feature of his face, Boone prepared to face Cutter and his gang head-on. In this final confrontation lay not just justice but also an opportunity for renewal, a chance to prove that he could rise above his past and reclaim everything that mattered most: honor, duty, and ultimately redemption itself. The air crackled with tension as they stood poised at the brink. Only one could emerge victorious. The aftermath of Boone's confrontation with Royce Cutter rippled through Canyon Falls like a shockwave, reshaping the very fabric of the community. As the dust settled and silence enveloped the saloon, the townspeople cautiously emerged from their hiding places, hearts pounding in anticipation of what would come next. Boone stood resolute, the weight of his actions pressing down upon him like a heavy mantle, but within him stirred a sense of clarity and purpose. Cutter's threat had been eliminated, but it was not without a cost. The townsfolk were left to reckon with the violence that had disrupted their lives. However, they also witnessed something transformative in Boone. No longer was he merely the sheriff who maintained order, he was a man who confronted his demons and emerged stronger. With each step towards the square, dialogues began to stir among the people, questions giving way to hope as they realized the strength of their leader. In those moments, Boone looked into the eyes of his neighbors and saw not just fear or uncertainty, but resilience, the same quality that brought them together against adversity. He understood that healing would take time. There were wounds created not only by Cutter's gang, but also by doubts that lingered in the hearts of the citizens about their sheriff's past. Boone knew he had more than just actions to mend. He needed to rebuild trust and unity within Canyon Falls. Gathering the townspeople in the square, Boone spoke with earnest conviction, offering an apology for any doubt caused by his former life and thanking them for standing firm. He shared his journey toward redemption, illustrating how a man could rise above his past and inspire change. The speech resonated deeply. Many felt a renewed sense of belonging as they rallied around him, pledging to restore peace together. Yet while calm returned, fragments of tension remained, remnants of fears that still haunted some. Boone was acutely aware that this resolution was fragile, needing constant nurturing to foster growth. But for the first time in a long while, hope hovered in the streets like morning light breaking through after a storm, a promise that healing could begin. As weeks turned into months, Canyon Falls gradually transformed. New alliances formed over shared labor, neighbors reached out with kindness, and Boone found himself supported not just as a sheriff but as a community leader who had faced adversity and emerged intact. Redemption flowed through the town like a river, connecting those who once felt divided. The essence of Boone's journey became a source of inspiration. It paved new paths toward unity and strength in vulnerability. Though there would always be reminders of past struggles, it was evident that experiences shaped their identities, both individually and collectively, and that a brighter future awaited beyond those shadows. In reclaiming his honor, Boone had infused new life into Canyon Falls, proving that even in the aftermath of conflict, healing and hope could flourish anew. The story of Sheriff Boone Travis is one that resonates deeply within the hearts of the townspeople of Canyon Falls, weaving a tapestry of redemption and sacrifice. In confronting Royce Cutter, Boone not only battled an external threat but also faced the ghosts of his past, a journey that ultimately reshaped him into not just a lawman, but a symbol of hope and transformation for his community. Through gunpowder and courage, Boone learned that healing is a collective effort, one that necessitates vulnerability and candor in order to bridge the divides created by fear and uncertainty. His confrontation with Cutter served as both a personal reckoning and a public testament to the power of resilience. Instead of fading into obscurity marked by former sins, Boone emerged revitalized, embodying the spirit of perseverance necessary to unite the fractured community around shared values of trust and integrity. As peace gradually returned to Canyon Falls, it became evident that Boone's actions had redefined the boundaries of what it meant to be a leader. No longer measuring leadership solely by authority, he fostered an environment where collaboration flourished through open dialogue. The townsfolk rallied together, neighbors turned into allies, working hand in hand in rebuilding what had temporarily shattered, forging new relationships shaped by their shared experiences. This journey illuminated for them how sacrifice is often the bedrock upon which solidarity is built. Boone's willingness to bear his vulnerability inspired others to do the same. They stepped forward to confront their fears and contributions to the past unrest, leading the way toward healing and reconciliation. The town began to flourish once more, not simply as a place where people lived, but as a community bound together by newfound respect and camaraderie. Yet this metamorphosis was neither simple nor linear. There would still be reminders of past struggles, remnants of doubts resurfacing from time to time, but each could now be met with conviction rather than despair. The scars left behind by violence became markers of strength rather than liabilities, serving as reminders that true change requires continuous commitment and effort. In the end, Boone's redemption journey transformed not just himself but invigorated an entire community. Through gunpowder tested against courage, they learned invaluable lessons about honor, forgiveness, and unity that would ripple through generations. While the past could haunt them, it would also guide them as they stepped bravely into a future shaped by resilience, a legacy forged in adversity that paved the way for enduring strength amidst life's many challenges.